What's up guys, ADCZ here, welcome back to Yugioh deck of the day. Today we're doing a profile on the final deck of the new set, Rage of Ra. We covered Rage of Ra, we covered of course the Winged Dragon of Ra, we covered Jinzo, which was the second deck, and now we're doing the Meklord deck. I think this one is probably the least anticipated deck out of all the three, but I know that a lot of 5Ds fans out there are excited that this deck finally is able to play it as an archetype. The deck had a lot of cards before too, but it wasn't really a cohesive deck that had a good strategy to deal with. Even if you were facing Synchro Monster, which was supposed to be what this deck counters, it still wasn't good enough. But now the deck has a good win condition, it has a lot of tools to get to that win condition, and I think it's a really fun deck. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, it helps us a lot. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming profiles, and now let's get to the deck profile. So to start off, we have the new boss monster, 3 copies of Meklord Astro Dragon Triskelion. This card is amazing, you can summon it by just banishing 3 Meklord monsters with different names from your graveyard. It's a 3000 beater, and when it attacks, it can take a monster of your opponent's extra deck, so not only do you get to see what your opponent's playing, if you already haven't, but if you equip a monster, it will gain that much attack, and if it's a Synchro monster, it can make up to 3 attacks on monsters. So if your opponent plays Synchro monsters, which in this format they most certainly do, because with cards like Needle Fiber, everyone is playing Savage, everyone's playing Herald, so if you equip your opponent's Savage onto this, you have a 6000 attacker that can attack 3 monsters, and this is probably enough to OTK sometimes just by itself, so it's a really good card, and you have a really easy access to summon this and get to your hand. Next up, we have Meklord Emperor Wiesel, 3 copies of it. This is the only Meklord Emperor I run. You can run Granel if you want. Granel is a beater that you can have if you want to have more attack. I don't think you should run Skill. Skill not only requires it to have a Synchro monster equipped to it to use its effect, but even if you do, it's not a good effect, can attack directly. Wiesel does not rely on it having a Synchro equipped. Once per turn, it can negate a spell card, decent effect, and if you're playing against Synchros, you can equip one onto Wiesel, and then it will gain that much attack, so it's a really good card. And I am playing more of a Wiesel-oriented deck, mainly because they are dark, because there's an engine I play in this deck that utilizes dark machines really well, so Skill is Win, Granel is there, so they don't have that much synergy. So I think you can basically say this is a Meklord Wiesel deck, the most part. Sticking to the Wiesel theme, we have one Wiesel Synchro Absorption. This card is not as good as I thought it was going to be, but still a decent one-off because you can search whenever you want. Unfortunately, it has like an added effect that it stops a monster from attacking. It would have been much better if it stopped a monster from using its effect, but still it's something that you can drop on your opponent by sending a face-up Meklord monster to the grave, and then you can stop one of your monsters from attacking like a Kaina. Still a 25 beater, not a bad card, but not as good as it should have been. Next up, we have the Searcher. We play 3 copies of Meklord Nucleus Infinity Core. This card is insane. If it's summoned, you can add a Meklord spell and trap from your deck to your hand, and if it's destroyed by a card effect, you can special a Meklord Emperor from your hand or deck. It has to have a different attribute from other monsters you control, but usually it doesn't. You don't have anything on the field, and it ignores summoning conditions, so you can summon pretty much anything you want. So I think this card is by far the best starter in the deck. There is another starter that you can rely on, but you want to see Infinity Core most of the time. The next card is the second starter, which is Arsenal of Obligato. This is more based around the Meklord army part of the deck, because you can destroy it to special summon 2 Meklord armies from your deck. But it locks you into machines, which is something that you have to keep in mind for when you try to do some plays. Also, this card has a burn effect that helps you win during the first turn if you're going into time, because if it's sent to the grave, during the end phase, you can inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each Meklord monster you have. So if you're going into time, then you can win a sneaky game just with this card. And the Meklord armies I play for this card is 3 Meklord army of Wiesel. Again, I'm maxing out Wiesel because it has the effect to pretty much be the dark monster. Its effect is not that good. It deals piercing, it makes your Meklord deal piercing, but it's a dark machine, so this is what you want to do because of the secondary engine I'm going to show you a little bit later. And I am playing 1 copy of Skill and 1 copy of Granel. I wanted to play 5 just to have the number, because if you're playing 3 or 4, if you draw 1, then you cannot use Obligato's effect twice, which will happen a lot. So I think 5, if you draw 1, you have 4 in your deck, so you can use its effect twice to get 2 monsters from your deck. The next engine I play is what I think makes this deck work, and it's 3 Desperado Barrel Dragon. This card is amazing if you're playing a Dark Machine deck. If any of your Dark Machines is destroyed by battle or card effect, and some monsters destroy their own, and also you have a spell that destroys your monsters, you can summon this very easily. You can drop this on the field. During the battle phase, you toss 3 coins, and for every heads, you can destroy that many monsters on the field. This card cannot attack the turn and use its effect, and also if it goes to the grave, you can add a level 7 or lower monster that has a coin toss effect, which I am including one in this deck just to make the most value out of this card. But this is an insane monster because it's board wipe, it's a free beater that has 2800 attack that you can drop on the field very easily, and it also recycles itself when it goes to the grave. And I'm playing 1 Time Wizard. This is a very unorthodox card, yes, but no, but I just wanted to include 1 card that Desperado could search to make the most use out of its effect. And this card, if you get lucky, you can turn the tides of a duel. If you're just getting in a grind game and your Desperado got destroyed, you can search this and then rely on luck to turn the duel, which is better than having nothing to search with Desperado, because if you didn't have Time Wizard in your deck, then it would just go around the grave for whatever reason. Or if you don't want to risk its effect for whatever reason, you can just summon it and then use it as link material for something, which is something good. I think if any of your cards in your deck have an effect to search something, even if it's not the most optimal thing to search, you should play at least one copy just to have the option. It's better to have something to search than have nothing to search, even if it's not the most optimal thing to do. And the last real monster is one Dragon Bastard Distraction Sword, because there's effect of Obligato. It says you're locked into machines. Guess what Union Carrier is? Union Carrier is a machine, so with the monsters you summon from the deck, with Obligato you can summon your Union Carrier, and then if you have a Weisel or a Synchro Absorption or anything, you can just make your Union Carrier equip this onto your Weisel, and then you have a monster that locks your opponent out of the extra deck and can negate a spell during its turn, which is important if your opponent is playing cards like Twin Twisters, Cosmic Cyclone, or Lightning Storm to try to get rid of the Bastard Lock. And the only hand trap I play is 3 Ash Blossom. This deck doesn't have enough space to play a lot of hand traps, but still I wanted to include at least Ash just because she's the most generic. You can replace her with any card you want. It can be more engine cards or it can be another hand trap if you think it's better. But these 3 slots are what are pretty much the flex spots of the deck. For the spells, you play 3 Meklord Assembly. This is another searcher. On activation, it pretty much searches you a Meklord monster, and you can discard a card and then target a monster you control, destroy it. This has 2 uses. First, it triggers both effects of your Desperado. You can either discard it to get a search, or you can destroy your own monster to special not only a Weisel, but you can also special summon your Desperado from your hand. And the good thing this combo is that Desperado, even though it's a beater, it doesn't have to attack to be useful. And when you have Weisel on the field, it prevents you from attacking with other monsters. So if you have both on the field, you can use Weisel to attack during the battle phase and have Desperado to pop monsters during the battle phase. So it's a good combo you can have just to clear your opponent's board and have Weisel keep attacking, so you can eventually go for game. Next up, we have 1-for-1. Of course, you have to have more copies of Infinity Core in your deck. 3 Foolish Burial Goods, because I'm playing a card that I showcased in the Jinzo deck profile too, that I think when you're playing Dark Machines, you should be playing this engine 100%. And the last card is Supply Squad, because this deck, if you haven't already noticed, it pops a lot. It pops on its own. If your opponent destroys monsters, then you can keep drawing cards. You can draw during your own turn, you can draw during your opponent's turn, and if you have multiple copies of this, then you can get a lot of cards in your hand. So I think you should be playing this in a Meklord deck, just because it does need a little bit more gas in order to be able to be played, because it's not the most competitive deck ever, so yeah, you need to play supportive cards that help you get into your combo pieces fast. And for the traps, play 3 copies Meklord Astro Extermination. This card is really good because not only does it give you the option to play Foolish Burial Goods other than just the card I'm going to show you next, that is usually what you have to, because you can banish this from your grave to destroy a Synchro monster your opponent controls. And if you control a Meklord Astro monster, which again is relevant because cards like Needle Fiber exist, so most of your opponents will be using Synchro monsters. I know it sounds a bit format dependent, so if my Fiber gets banned or if Linkros gets banned and people stop playing this, then this effect will not be as relevant, but for now it's very, very relevant effect. And your Astro is your Triskelion, so you don't have to play Asterisk, because it's the old card, which is not that good because it just required you a lot of minus in order to be able to special summon it. And also has a really good field effect. You can target 3 Meklord monsters in your grave with different names, and you will either add them to the hand or special summon them ignoring summoning conditions. So it's another card that locks you into machines, but still this card gives you so much advantage that it's really, really good, especially in this format, like I said. And the last card in the main deck is 1 Orcus Crescendo, because with your Fool's Burial Goods, you send this, and then you can search any of your Dark Machines, usually your Infinity Core or your Weisel if you already have it. And if you draw this card, you can discard it with your Meklord Assembly, so it's not like a dead card if you haven't drawn. Now for the extra deck, we play the Xyz monsters, 1 Gear Gigant X. This is the only monster you can summon out of the Xyz lineup under Obligato's restriction, but it's still a really good card to have. But I am playing more rank 4 Xyz just because you will not always be under Obligato's restriction, so I'm playing Redoer. This usually we summon against trap decks, so you can use the effect more effectively because you don't play a card like Shade Brigandine to inherently put a trap under it. 1 Tornado Dragon against backrow decks 2, 1 Baguska, and 1 Dweller. These 2 correspondingly defeat certain types of decks, like 1 beats Salmon Grades, 1 beats Orcust. It's one or the other. If you know what you're playing against, then you can summon 1, and then will probably be a stop to your opponent's turn. For Link monsters, we play 1 Link Rebo, because Infinity Core is level 1, and sometimes you don't even need to use this effect if you already have anything, especially during the late game where you need to Link Climb, and you have this, so you can summon the Nightmares under it to keep drawing cards. 1 Union Carrier for the Buster Lock, really, really strong since you have a way to negate spells, so you can negate the cards that would get rid of your Buster Lock. 1 Masquerena to link to your opponent's turn, the Nightmares, 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, and 1 Unicorn, pretty standard. And for the Link 4s, we play 1 Appaloosa. This deck can spam a lot, and you can just keep the monsters you have on the field, even if you're locked under machines. You don't have to do something immediately with them. You can just keep them there, and then with cards like your Desperado, you can get a lot of monsters on the field even during your opponent's turn. And since you are drawing with your Supply Squad, it's still something that you will keep fueling your hand so you have more monsters. So these Link 4s are not something that you're going to summon too often, but they can come up, so I think you have to play them just in case. The extra deck is not that important for this deck, but you're playing monsters that could come up potentially, so you play them just for that scenario. 1 Boral Sword, so you can go for more decays if you, for some reason, you don't have access to Driscalia. 1 Borload, deal with Dragoon, and 1 Avramax, because I think if you're playing Masquerena in some builds, this card, if you have the space to play, because it's something that gets the protection of Dragoon itself if you have Masquerena, because it's untargetable and it can be destroyed by card effects, and also has the honest effect, so your opponent has to get rid of it with something like a Dark Ruler or more, or a normal summon monster with more than 3000 attack, which is pretty much impossible. So yep, that's the deck, guys. It's a really fun deck. If you're a 5Ds fan, please give it a try. It's a very cheap deck, very budget. It's not the best deck, but it's still a deck that can steal a lot of games because it does have win conditions now, and it's really fun to play. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. It helps us a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos, and we'll see you next time.